Hi, this is Harold Smith. I'm going to tell you today how I am related to Princess Diana. Now, this is primarily for my family, my cousins, and others who are interested in genealogy, but this video may be interested to anyone because it tells you my passion about genealogy and about finding out your family background, your legacy, and so you can, maybe this will be an inspiration for you to get involved in your genealogy because it's never too early to start. I remember when I started, it was over 30 years ago, I'd go and speak to one of my aunts and she said, "Oh, you should have talked to Layla. She knew everything about the family." Well, the problem was that Layla had passed away. I went to on my mother's side of the family. "Oh, you should have talked to Aston. He knew everything about the family." Unfortunately, Aston had passed away also. So it's never too early to start. And as I said, I've been doing this for over 30 years and just love it. I mean, I have not only studied my genealogy on my side of the family, I've studied Marcella's. We've even made a trip to Scotland, the Isle of Jura, where her family was from, and her ancestor, as he came to around Pinehurst area, her famous fourth great-grandfather was Kenneth Black. He was killed during the Revolutionary War, and it's because of his killing that that the Battle of the House in the Horseshoe was conducted. And this is now a North Carolina State Park. It was all about her fifth or fourth great-grandfather who was killed. And I've studied the Queries. I've studied Rex. Rex is related to John Reed, his fifth grandfather, who was the first person who discovered gold. And now he's established Reed Gold Mine, which is also a state park in North Carolina. I've studied Leon genealogy. Leon, his dad was Armenian, and they were involved in the genocide by the Turks in 1915 and had to flee Armenian, and just interesting stories. And so the study of genealogy is a passion of mine. And so now let's get back to Princess Diana. And I have to give you a little background here because when I first started studying genealogy, I went to my cousin. The only person who could give me any information was Polly Mayberry. And she said, "Well, I know that we are related to William Leake, who was married to Mary Boswick, and she was an ancestor of my grandmother, Fleda Lou Leake, on my dad's side of the family." And she said, now something very interesting. They brought a Bible over, which is dated in 1585, and it had the list of births in that Bible. And I'm sure that if you found that Bible, you could find a lot of interesting information. And so I said, "Oh my goodness." So she said, "It's somewhere probably in a museum in Virginia." So I called every museum in Virginia, and finally they said, "Well, maybe you better check with the Library of Virginia." So I checked with the Library of Virginia and they said, "Yes, we've got the Bible." So I spent a weekend. I drove to Richmond, went to the library, found that Bible, and the page of the verse had been torn out. Now, since then I have found that page, but while I was there, I also studied other sources, and so through my study there in the Library of Virginia, and I might say this was before Ancestry.com. You know, we didn't have this great resource that people have today with Ancestry.com. I had to do it the hard way. But anyway, through studying, I was able to trace from Frida Lou Leake, my grandmother, all the way up to Sir Francis Leake, who was my 11th great-grandfather. And he was part of the nobility in England. And he was, and so in my study, I found a city in England called East Leake. And it was suggested that that's where my Leakes were from. So Marcel and I, we jump on a plane, we go to East Leake in London, and I find this old bookstore and an old man, and books are piled all the way up to the ceiling, and I asked him, is there any books on the history of this area? He said, oh yes, said a Roman road came through here, so we've got history going back 2,000 years. I said, oh, let me see it. So I began to, there were 2 books that he showed me, and I began to sit there and read, and John Brown, this is what I found out. I found out that it was settled by Alan of Leake. Alan was a Danish person, probably a Viking, and he settled in this area around 1050. And leek comes from an old English word which was leka, which meant a water meadow. And this area was just right beside a branch, and it was just a beautiful meadow. And so Alan, he took his name, he says Alan of Leake. That's how he got his name. Now, I gotta warn you, it started off different spellings. Leka, it was Leka, Leek without the E. And then about the time of Sir Francis, he was the first one to actually use L-E-A-K-E. And so, so as I read, there was Alan of Leake, Harold of Leake, his son was Alan of Leake, his son was Henry, and I came all the way down through 12 generations, and these were listed in this book. And it came to Sir Francis Leake, and I said, oh my goodness, I have actually tied my genealogy for 26 generations back to 1050. And this was the time of William the Conqueror, who came in and conquered England, and he set up these various manors. And in my 24th ancestor, our great-grandfather, Alan of Leake, he was given the town of Leake and the manor, and he became Lord of the Manor. And they were Lord of the Manor of this area from this time all the way down for about 600 years to Sir Francis Leake. Now, Sir Francis Leake, he got in financial trouble, but by this time he had inherited Sutton Scarsdale, and so he actually sold the manor of East Leake and began living at Sutton Scarsdale. Now, you can Google Sutton Scarsdale Hall. You can Google that, and it's a mansion. You can see pictures of it's in ruins now, but that was where our ancestors, the Leakes, lived and were Lord of the Manor there at Sutton Scarborough. And but let me tell you how I am related to Princess Diana. You come down here to Sir John Leake, and he died about 1456. Well, I'm related to Princess Diana 2 different ways from Sir John Leake. from his son Simon and from his daughter Margaret. Both will lead you. Princess Diana, her great-grandfather, her 17th great-grandfather is Sir John Lee. And he is also my 17th great-grandfather. So Princess Diana is my 17th cousin. And Princess Diana's genealogy is well documented. And so I was able to go in and study her genealogy. And this is how I was able to find a common great-grandfather, Sir John Lee. Now, I'm also related to Princess Diana in another way. And this is through my uncle, my 17th, well, it would actually be the 23rd great-grand uncle, Harold of Staunton. And he was the son of Allen of Lee. And our family comes through this Lee, but he came and he started the manor at Staunton. And it became known as Staunton Harold. And so if you come down through 10 generations, the daughter Margaret married Ralph Shirley. And so then we come down to Francis of Staunton Harold Shirley, and he is the 12th great-grandfather of Princess Diana. And so that is another way that I am related to Princess Diana. And here again, you can go and Google Staunton Harold Hall. And that building is still being occupied. It's a beautiful mansion, and it's still being occupied today. And it has been for the last several hundreds of years owned by the Shirley family. And so just some interesting story. I have dozens of stories like this. And also, I'm also related to Winston Churchill. He is also my 17th cousin. Also, I am related to King Charles I and II by marriage. This is through marriage. This is not through blood. But there's an interesting story about King Charles I. If you know your history, King Charles I, Parliament and King Charles I had a civil war. And Parliament was led by Cromwell. And they were able to defeat the forces of King Charles I and ended up beheading King Charles I in 1646. Well, over here, the son of Sir Francis Lee, I call him the younger to keep the two separated. Sir Francis Lee, the first Earl of Scarsdale. Now, my family comes through Richard. Sir Francis was the oldest. Well, he was so upset. He was a great supporter of King Charles I. Of course, they were related to one another, and by marriage. And he was so distraught over the beheading of King Charles I that he dug his grave several years earlier before his death. And each Friday, he would put on sackcloth and lay in his grave and mourn the beheading of King Charles I. Just, an interesting story. Now, this line of Sir Francis Lee, the first Earl of Scarsdale, it goes down to the fourth Earl of Scarsdale, and his name was Nicholas Lee. And Nicholas did not have any heirs, but he also he spent lavishly on Sutton Scarsdale. And you can, like I say, you can go on Google and look at pictures of this beautiful mansion. But he spent so much money that he went bankrupt and ended up having to sell Sutton Scarsdale. So it's owned by a different family today. But I think it's all right now. It's owned by the government as a national treasure. But anyway, this is my story of how I am related to Princess Diana. And you can see just how interesting the stories you can find by doing your research, finding your ancestors. And so I just recently, in the last month, after going through everybody's genealogy, I came back to the lease to study it, to find out more about it. So I've just found out this information in the last 30 days, and just been so excited to know that I am related. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't change my. It's just interesting to know that I am related to Princess Diana. She's my 17th cousin. Winston Churchill is my 17th cousin. And that's just interesting to me. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope this will inspire you to learn of your roots. And I know in Marcella we've traced her genealogy back to the Cherokee. She's got about 1% Cherokee Indian in her. So those things are just interesting to me. And I hope that you've enjoyed this video of how I am related to Princess Diana.